Man, Tristan Thompson speaks on inspiration. The Warriors dominate the Nets. Brooklyn is screaming, "Where is Kyrie?" I'm Rosa Panta. This is the Clinic All NBA podcast. I have the three hooligans with me again. JJ, how you living, my friend?
Where in the world is Kyrie Irving?
John, how you living?
Feeling good, feeling great. How are you? Sorry, Jay.
Sami, how you living, my friend?
I can't complain. I am doing well, thank you.
Well, first off, we're going to start off with some quick hits. You know, the Sixers and Jazz faced off. It was 85-120. The Jazz won that game. JJ, what did you think of that game?
Yeah, primetime game. Bogdanovic went off for 27 points, 5 for 7 at 3. Gobert had 4 blocks, 17 rebounds. But it's, good to note that Embiid was out of that game due to health protocol.
Yeah, and also Thibault. So I'm sure they were definitely missing those two. John, what did you think of the Lakers-Bucks? The Lakers went down to the Milwaukee Bucks 102-109.
I thought it was a good game. I was actually encouraged, even though they lost, because they showed a lot more fight offensively and defensively. Westbrook wasn't a minus 56 this time. We had Talen Horton-Tucker, who is super young, but he's very talented. Put up 25 with 12 rebounds. So future looks bright for him. I would like to see Anthony Davis be more aggressive and take more shots. He got bullied by Giannis, and that's not a slight because Giannis is a monster, but AD needs to take more than 15 shots and score more than 18 points for us to have a chance without LeBron James.
Right. I absolutely agree. Sami, what did you think of the Mavs Suns? It was 98-105 in a Suns win. What did you think?
Great game, very competitive overall. Dallas was actually up and going into the fourth and for a while in the fourth quarter, but the biggest thing I think that got exposed is Dallas's issue where if Luka's out, which he was for this game, which was obviously the primary story, they don't have a secondary scorer who can go create their own offense or set up for others. Brunson started in his place, actually had a great game, 18, 9, and 8. Porzingis actually played really well, 21, 8, and 7. Hardaway at 22. But when it got down to that final 5 or 6 minutes, when it was crunch time or winning time, that's when they started to struggle because that's obviously when you're not necessarily running your normal offense. On the Suns side, very balanced. Booker had 24, Ayton had 19, Bridges had 10. CP actually shot very poorly. He started the game, I want to say it was 1 for 8, finished at 2 for 12, but at the end of the game, he was able to orchestrate the offense, get guys in position to hit shots, and then Booker hit that dagger shot at the end of the game. So I think it just exposed that Dallas has the potential to be anybody, any night, but I think they're going to need someone, a secondary ball handler who can score, create shots, do things like that in crunch time to help supplement Luka and when Luka's not playing.
Right, and I think that was the biggest knock on them this offseason was that they couldn't really find Luka enough help. I think that was why people were picking Luka for the MVP because early on, before the season started, it's because Luka has to carry so much weight for this team to do well.
Right.
And for the last one, we just watched the Sixers-Nuggets. The Sixers ended up just completely waxing the Nuggets. 103-89. It seems a lot closer at the end or with that final score. But let me tell you that the Nuggets inexplicably lost this game, considering how many people the Sixers have out. But the Sixers look like just the more complete team. They showed up ready for this game and won. I want to actually get to our first spotlight team. We've never done this yet. And basically the clinic here, we're going to pick a team that is sort of we deem worthy or interesting enough to highlight. And right now, I think it's the Washington Wizards. They're 10-5. They did have recent losses to the Hornets and Heat, but they've had the 8th most difficult schedule, and they are still 10-5. They actually seat atop of the Eastern Conference. What do you guys think of this team?
John kind of hinted at it earlier with Westbrook with the minus 56, which was pretty forgiving because it's usually like a minus 1,000. I'm just kidding. But
No, you're not.
the first thing that I think of is addition by subtraction, which is Westbrook. Westbrook last year when he was with the Wizards, they actually led with the least possessions, which meant they had the fastest pace out of all the teams.
Right.
Fast forward to this year, they're actually ranked 21st in pace, which means that their game is being really slowed down throughout the 48 minutes. So theoretically, you would think with Westbrook, when you have spot-up shooters, it would be a great offense. He had great shooters with Houston. He had Harden, he had Gordon, he had Tucker. Didn't really work out. Fast forward to the Lakers. The other scheme, which is if you're gonna push pace, you want good trailers. He arguably has the best trailers with LeBron James and AD. They could beat their man backcourt, rush up on a fast break, trail with Westbrook. I haven't really seen that. The issue with Westbrook, I believe, is that he just has bad decision making, particularly with his shots. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but that's what I'm observing, and the stats don't lie. And you just see it with the win total, right?
Yeah, I kind of agree with that to an extent. I know that Westbrook, he's super athletic, but he has a lot of deficiencies, not just on offense, but on defense. He's actually not a great defender, despite being super athletic, fast. He can move laterally. He can obviously jump, but he's a kind of a black hole on that. From what I've seen in the first 12 games or 16 games. I'm sorry, and you're right. It is addition by subtraction. The Wizards got way better defensively. KCP is underrated defensively. Kuzma has the tools, and he played defensively much better in the last 2 seasons with the Lakers. And then they added Dinwiddie, who can get his own buckets. So for me, I think overall as a team, they got much better. Montrezl Harrell is a great bench player. He's playing way better now than he did with the Lakers for whatever reason. I don't know why. And then they still have some other guys that are injured. So for me, in terms of the trade, I think the Wizards are better off for it. Now, their season is still young, and maybe this is my Laker homer glasses coming on, but I am not going to put my full judgment or my criticism on Westbrook until the season's over, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? If he somehow turns it on in the middle, towards the end of the season, and they go far in the playoffs and knock on wood, maybe win a championship, then all of this conversation about Westbrook being whatever this and that and slander, that goes out the window. So that remains to be seen, and I'm going to withhold my judgment. 2 reasons: because I am a Laker homer, and also because the season is still young.
Well, so going off of some of the pieces John mentioned, I also just think the issue with Westbrook, and I don't want to pile on him, but I guess that's what we're doing.
Do it.
Is that whenever he steps on the court, he thinks he's the best player on the court, which can be a great thing. It's a confidence thing. Obviously, these guys have to think they're the best players in order to perform at the highest levels. But I think what that did was it took some shots away from Beal and might have created not necessarily chemistry issues, but just flow of offense issues. And you look at the starters now: Beal, Dinwiddie, KCP, Kuzma, Gafford. On paper, that doesn't look like a great starting lineup, but those pieces fit so well together. Dinwiddie, I think, is underrated in terms of how intelligent he is, his basketball IQ, putting guys in the right place. I think Kuzma, I know he got a lot of hate in Southern California just because obviously there was a huge spotlight on him. He obviously, in terms of purely in his body and the way he played the game, there's a slight bit of duplication with what LeBron does, so it's hard to play them together at the same time, I think. He's been a great rebounder, playing good defense, like John mentioned, with that squad, and he seems like he's really found his proper fit, and I think it's probably been good for him to not be in the spotlight like he was in LA.
Yeah.
So that he's not under the microscope.
I'm going to agree with you there. I think Kyle Kuzma, I mean, you look at that trade, Westbrook for Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell, you could say that they almost got this collection of like misfit toys that were just completely underperforming, right? And the Wizards have found the secret sauce, whatever that may be, to unlock those 3 those three players. I mean, Kuzma's playing great defense. He's had probably... He was never going to be a superstar. And that was the problem in LA, right? Is that the expectation is that this guy was going to be one of the next dudes to help them win a championship. And he could never live up to that. But what he's doing right now, I mean, averaging 13 points, 8.8 rebounds, that's perfectly fine for what he needs to be next to Bradley Beal, who does a great job spacing the floor, who isn't playing well this year, by the way.
Right.
He has not had a good start. So that's something to also look forward to, is that they're not winning because of Bradley Beal's offense. Well, he was like second in points last year.
Yeah.
Next to Steph Curry. But now they have literally a top 5 defense to complement that while Bradley Beal isn't playing well. And you have Rui Hachimura. He's injured. He hasn't played a single game yet. And he was probably their second best scorer last year.
Right.
So there's still some upside to this team where you're sitting back and kind of thinking like this team could actually get better. And Montrezl Harrell. We haven't even mentioned Montrezl Harrell. I mean, John, you watched him in LA. Did you think he was the 6th man of the year like he was in, where was he? Clippers.
No, I don't. I don't. It was a mixture of. I didn't think it was the right fit, the players around him, or the style of play. Vogel is obviously known as a defensive-minded coach, and I think Sami will attest to this. Montrezl Harrell isn't really known for his defense. He's a great offensive player. So I think he was limited, and Vogel had a really short leash with him because he didn't play great defense.
Agreed. And with Harrell, he plays a very specific game, and he needs certain players next to him. Primarily what he needs is a good pick-and-roll partner. Like, he did so well with the Clippers because Lou Will and him had an amazing 2-man game. And so with Harrell, I would define him almost, the term I've heard that I would agree with is a regular season player. And so what I mean by that is, especially in the East, you don't have Jokic, you don't have Davis, you don't have as many bigs. You obviously haven't beaten some other guys who they haven't played yet. But the bigs there aren't quite on the same level, in my opinion, as they are out West. And so the way his game is, he's full of energy. There's nights in the regular season where you need players like that, where maybe the energy level is down, where he's just running, grabbing boards, going for lobs. That kind of player in the regular season can win you some games. Now, in the playoffs,
you're running,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say in the playoffs, you can easily scheme him off the floor, and that happened by the time the Lakers got to the playoffs last year, he was basically out of the rotation. But with the Clippers as well, the last year there, I mean, Jokic dominated him completely, and he should have been played off the floor, but thanks to Doc, he was not. But that's another story. Anyway, John, you were saying?
I would just say that you made the point that you made is he's a pick and roll player, and the issue is that when you're running a pick and roll with a player who can't really shoot well, Dennis Schroeder or anybody else for that matter, they don't have to play.
That's a great point.
The defense that they play, they can just the roller. It isn't going to be free because they don't have to take seriously the player with the ball. He doesn't have a threat mid-range.
They're just going to crash the lane.
I think that was an issue. Right. They're just going to crash the lane and block that.
Yeah, and to add on, this is an underrated stat, but Kuzma and Avdija are both ranked in the top 10 in defensive rating.
Oh, wow.
That's huge.
And what's crazy is that when they have their different rotations in, you could have obviously a defensive heavy unit, but with Harrell and Beal, that's going to spread the floor, and with Dinwiddie as well. So props to the Wizards. Way to prove me wrong.
Yep. And me too. And with Harrell, one last point I'll make is he's also playing for a contract. And we know that is always a motivator. He's a free agent after this year.
That is definitely
not proving me wrong. Not proving me wrong. I knew the Wizards were going to be first seed in the East.
And you know, I forgot to take today's games into consideration. The Wizards actually sit now 4th, not 1st anymore, as of today. But anyway, we think that team has the potential to even get better. Or actually, I do at least. I don't know if you guys do too. But I think this team has the potential to get better just with the stats early on. They're just completely surprising to us. The NHL season is underway, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, has an unbelievable offer to celebrate the greatest sport on ice. New customers can bet just $1 on any NHL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. Doesn't matter if it's a one-time clapper or a depth deflection, however they light the lamp, you win. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code TBPN. Throw down $1 on any NHL game and win $100 in free bets if either team scores a goal. This week, one puck in the net nets you a big win with promo code TBPN at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. Must be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only, new customers only, minimum $5 deposit and $1 wager required, one per customer, restrictions apply, see DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. We're gonna get to stories around the league now. Tristan Thompson had a presser that went viral on Twitter. He had this to say. He said, "No man in this world should rely on another man to inspire them. I don't need no blanking coach to inspire me. Never have, never will. The day I need a coach to inspire me is the day I'm blanking retiring." What do you guys think of this quote?
I definitely see where he's coming from. I mean, if you're playing at the highest level of basketball in the world, then that should be motivation enough for you, and you should be able to take that every day and go with it. So I completely understand that. I do think having a coach who has that ability doesn't hurt, but your motivation should come from yourself internally. And coaching or anybody else should just be able to supplement that and put you in positions to be the best player you can. So I completely understand where he's coming from in that regard.
I agree with it. I just think he could have said it in a much better way, because saying it the way that he did with mainstream media, with the way that reporters spin things and the way that it's going to be portrayed essentially, is not a good look. And people, the narrative around Tristan Thompson is it's going to cause issues in the locker room. It doesn't really put a good light on the relationship between him and the coach. And even though I agree with you, Sami, I agree with what essentially the details of what he said and how he feels about it. I think he could have just said it with way more tact.
I would agree with that too.
Okay, we could talk about Tristan Thompson. We could talk about the coach, Luke Walton. But what it all comes down to, it's the Sacramento Kings. It's the culture. It's always been about the culture.
Yeah.
And until they move forward with new management, I think they're going to be the same old Kings. And this little quote from Tristan Thompson is just a reflection of how that team is and will be.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good look. It's not a good look for the Sacramento Kings or Tristan Thompson or the players around him. It just seems like this is a good way to put yourself on an island. Like, you're going to show up to practice and every single person on the team is going to look at you side-eyed, right?
Yeah, and I mean, going back to what Jay just mentioned with management, based on what we've seen, what do you guys think of the ownership there?
Better than the Suns ownership, I'll tell you
Not
that.
much. I don't think much of it.
It seems like he wants to take the pieces or do what it takes to win, but from the stories, obviously it's all what we've heard through media, of course, but it seems like he's trying to get too involved sometimes and not let the basketball people make decisions, although I guess when the basketball people have made decisions, it hasn't turned out great either, so.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, only time will tell what happens with the Sacramento Kings and Tristan Thompson. Maybe they could work things out. Stephen A. Smith had some choice words after the Warriors-Nets game. The Warriors ended up dominating the Nets. He basically came out and said, "I think Kevin Durant should ask to be traded at the end of the season." He also had some other quotes as well. Maybe you guys can get to those. What do you guys think?
I take what Stephen A. Smith says with a grain of salt, just the way I take Skip Bayless's whatever he says with a grain of salt. I'll start with that, and then I'll let you guys continue.
He went extreme because he's Stephen A. Smith, and he's very good at doing that, and it's very entertaining to listen to. But I understood I understood the point he was making. Obviously, Kyrie has whatever you think of his beliefs. He's not on the court right now. He's not helping that team. He would obviously be a boon to them right now and very much needed. Harden came in clearly out of shape. He's complaining about the new calls all the time. And that's never going to help morale because I'm sure Katie's never going to say this out loud, but he's clearly not struggling with the new foul calls. So he's not complaining about it, not to the level that Harden is.
Nope.
Harden's not there. He's not in shape yet himself. That team feels like they're way too inconsistent for what we expected. And in the future, I mean, we wonder with Kyrie, at some point you're going to assume he's going to come back to play, and maybe that'll change things on some level. But I think the point that Stephen A. probably exacerbated a little bit was just that Kyrie has shown over and over in his career he's just not reliable purely from a basketball perspective. And if you can't rely on your number 2 or number 3 guy, whatever you want to call him there, then that just leaves a huge hole and a lack of trust to build the chemistry necessary to create what you assumed was going to be the championship favorite this year and next year.
Yeah, and to add on, it was just pretty crazy to see that Steph was getting MVP chants in KD's house. And we all know how the MVP award is pushed with the narrative. So you have Steph coming into 2015 form, as everyone is saying. You have the Warriors playing incredible D with these rotations where it could be offensive heavy, defensive heavy. You basically saw the Nets get exposed. The coaching staff got exposed. It felt like Steve Nash was outcoached on both ends of the floor, defense and offense. And people are calling him out with 9 minutes left, not even playing their 2 big stars. You have Sami mentioned Harden coming into the season out of shape and trying to play into shape, which is a no-no, and that's your superstar. And can I just say what's in the elephant in the room? Does everyone think in here feel that KD regrets going to Brooklyn?
Completely.
Did you trade your spot at Golden State with the easiest player to play with in Stephen Curry and go to play with someone in Kyrie Irving?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here, because I do agree with what JJ's saying about like the basketball sense. You would want to go play with Steph Curry and the coaching of Steve Kerr. Like that just makes complete basketball sense. That's why he came in the first place, right? But the relationship of upper management and Kevin Durant basically sealed the fact that he wanted to leave. That relationship was done. I mean, we've seen that parade, right? Where he slighted Kevin Durant and said he's going to get the mid-level exception. And then praised Steph Curry for being, one of the OGs, so he'll get whatever money he wants. And it was a joke that didn't really land. It was actually way too hard for Kevin Durant.
It's a joke.
Him. Yeah. It's a joke. I agree with you, but it's not. They should know who they're speaking to, though, right? That's part of your job as a manager,
right?
Is to know who you're talking to. You can't just make a joke to anybody. And so to say that Kevin Durant should be traded at the end of the season, I don't know if I say yes to this. Right? Does anyone actually think Kevin Durant should ask for a trade?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
And if June is the devil's advocate, I'm gonna be June's advocate right now because I agree with that, but I also think that if Kevin Durant just wanted to win championships, yes, he should have absolutely stayed with the Warriors, 100%. Yeah. But he wants to win championships as the guy, and no matter what he did in Golden State, it didn't matter if he put up 40, 20, and 10. He's never going to be the guy.
He would never be that guy.
Steph is beloved in San Francisco.
Also,
in the Bay.
If Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden went to the New York Knicks, Do you think there was any way in hell that Stephen A. Smith says this?
Oh, of course not.
No. Right?
But he'd be going off even more on Kyrie than he is right now, though.
That's true.
Very true.
That's absolutely true. But I'm going to move on to our next topic here. We've all had our opinions on who should have made the top 75 list and who shouldn't have. Now, T-Mac has come out and said, no disrespect to Anthony Davis, but before he got to LeBron James and won the championship with the Lakers, I mean, if you're trying to tell me if Anthony Davis was to retire right now, he has a better career than Dwight Howard? No? Wait, what do you guys think?
Man, this is tough for me because Anthony Davis was a pivotal piece to the Lakers winning a championship. He was obviously the clear number 2, and without him, the Lakers would not have won. Yes, he wouldn't have won with LeBron James, but you can say that about any team that's won the championship. That's ridiculous. Steph wouldn't have won his without Clay, right? Or Kevin Durant. That's just how it is. But Dwight had a great career too. And I think his antics off the court, the things he said, the perception of him in the twilight of his career where he jumped from team to team in the last 5 or 6 years, that was a knock. And should it have been? Probably not. I think with any list, 75 anniversary or top players of all time, they always look at the full aspect of a player, and that's beyond the basketball court. That's just the reality of it. My personal opinion, I think you should just always look at what they do on the court. And so I think Dwight Howard should be on this list. Now, I don't know if Anthony Davis should not be on this list, but I'll leave it at that.
I think there's probably some definite recency bias in this, in terms of recent success, because the version of Dwight Howard now that was voted on by the media is definitely not Dwight Howard at his peak. And since he's not retired yet and still playing, there's not necessarily that nostalgia that there might have been with other guys who finished their careers with different teams than their primary team that we kind of forget about. So...
Right.
And just like John was saying, this is a narrative thing. Dwight Howard is clearly very disliked in some circles in the league. And with McGrady, too, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure McGrady was still playing during Dwight Howard's prime. So the Dwight Howard that he remembers is that Orlando version that was just dominating on defense and was the centerpiece of what created a lot of versions of what became modern NBA offense, where you had shooters on the floor around one other player that set up all those players. So I think that ties into T-Mac's thinking. I respect it because obviously T-Mac knows the game probably better than most, since he was one of the greatest that we've seen play as well. But I do think it's a toss-up the way that John said. Should Dwight Howard be on this list? Most likely, yes. But because of a lot of perception of him, that's probably why he's not.
Yeah, we've said it on the pod that Dwight's accolades, MVP candidate, he beat LeBron James Cavs 2009.
Right.
Slam dunk champion, if you want to even go there. I don't want to mention that, but I guess I just did. But truth be told, Howard was pretty dominant in an era where they were moving away from centers.
Right.
And
right.
It's a narrative, like he's not liked, and that's just how it is.
Yeah, I'm going to completely agree with you guys. The fact that Dwight Howard isn't on the top 75 is perplexing. And Anthony Davis being on there, I could see how people can target him. I could see how they think it's too early, how they could come up with excuses for his championship. But Anthony Davis is one of the best players in the NBA today. That's what I have to say. When he's healthy, he's one of the most dominant players in the game today. He might be probably, top 10? Maybe even top 8 today? Is that too bold?
No, that's not too bold. But You say when he's healthy, and that's not often.
That's true.
I promise you, every time he falls, I watch the Laker games, guys, and you guys know this. Every time he gets bumped, he falls on the court like he just got shot or something. It's wild to me. It's crazy. I don't know.
Was AD ever an MVP candidate, like top 3?
That's a great question.
I think 1 year with the Pelicans, he was putting up some crazy numbers, and they made the playoffs. And that team wasn't that good without him. I mean, they were pretty terrible without him. So I think that was one of those years where he was probably top 3 or 4 in voting. I don't know the year, though.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that you're correct here. I think I'm trying to quickly search something, and, nothing's really popping. Nope, 2017, 2018. He did come in 3rd in voting. So he's been in MVP talks, I guess. Anyway, so for this next segment, RJ, our video producer, is actually on live with us, and he's going to give us a few games that are coming up. Right now, we're recording Thursday, November 18th. He's going to give us some games where we have to pick the winners. So, RJ, I'm going to give you the mic here. What's our first game?
Our first game would be Charlotte versus Atlanta. Sami, who do you got?
Well, if you asked me this about a week ago, I would have taken Charlotte, but Atlanta seems like they've gotten their act together. They've won 3 in a row. They're 6-1 at home. So I like them there, and just for anyone who can legally wager with our friends at DraftKings, if the spread is under 5, I like Atlanta by 7 or more.
Nice. JJ?
I'm going to go with Charlotte. Just because they're on top of the game. They beat the Warriors, and they also beat the Wizards.
John, my man, who do you got?
Yeah, I got Charlotte too. I think they're on a couple game win streak right now. They're playing really well. LaMelo is settling into his own, and Miles Bridges is just playing out of his mind. He's playing for a $500 million contract, the highest ever in the history of basketball.
Ro, who you got, cuz?
Man, I think I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks. I think they're going to right the ship. I think that they've done something in the most recent games to actually fix some of their problems. So I'm going to go with Atlanta.
All right, we're split on that game. Next game, Philly versus Portland. John, who do you have?
I just want to start off by saying that I love Dame, but I'm going to go with... I'm going to have to go...
Quoting JJ here.
Ooh, yes, JJ inspired me. I'm going to have to go with Philly. I know that they have some injuries, but I do think they are... I don't know. I have a feeling is what I'm going to say.
Sami, my dude.
I believe Embiid's still going to be out, which means they can't expose how bad Portland's defense always is. So if that's the case, I'm going to run with Portland on this one. And I also love Dame.
Bro.
Shout out to the Busted Bucket. But I think I might go with Philly here.
Oh,
and the reason being is because they've been without Thibault, they've been without Embiid, and they've been smacking teams. They just won twice, one of them being Sammy's Clippers. Wait, is that right?
It's the Clippers. No? Well, you gave me a reason to slander the Clippers anyway. Thank you.
I'm going with the Sixers.
All right, JJ.
I love Dame.
All right, so
but not
I'll just
least.
say I love Dame. And I'm going to go with the Blazers because I think Dame's going to go off to show Daryl Morey, hey, come get me.
That's a
Trade for
great
me.
angle.
Get me out of this place called Portland. And I'll
All
leave it
right, the
there.
next game we got is Dallas versus the Clippers. Ro, who do you have?
I just threw some shade at Sami here, so I'm gonna pick the Clippers. I'm gonna pick the Clippers on this one, buddy.
John?
I'm going to go with the Clippers too, despite Paul George hitting the side of the backboard twice. 2 times, not just once.
That was against Denver, not Dallas.
JJ, who do you have, man?
Who are the Clippers playing again? Sorry.
Dallas.
Dallas? I'll go for the Clippers.
Sammy.
I
you
will
better
obviously
pick
take the Clippers. Take the Clippers and take the under, and thank me later.
All right. Some good advice there. New York versus Chicago.
This is our
JJ.
last one here.
I like this one. Jay,
JJ, who do you
it's
have,
on
man?
you.
I'll say New York. The Knicks. They've been on a losing streak, and I think this is the game where they get their confidence back.
The rebound game.
Okay,
Bro, who do you
okay.
have?
I'm going to go with the Chicago Bulls. And the reason being is because they just lost to the Portland Trailblazers, a game they shouldn't have lost because they were up big in the first half. So I think they bounced back against New York.
Sammy, who do you have?
Well, so interesting thing on this is Chicago is going to be coming back from a long road trip, 5 games, and a lot of times that first game back at home, the team returning from that road trip tends to actually struggle. So I'm going to take
boy.
the Knicks in the upset here.
Always sounding like the betting man.
I wish
Always.
Sammy chose before me.
John, last but not least, who you have, man?
I will never, and mark this, never vote against my boy Caruso. So I'm going to pick Chicago every
That's what's
single time.
All right, John, we riding, man. We riding.
Yep.
Love it. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, RJ, to the video producer. And you know, that's actually it for our show tonight. JJ, thanks for being on, my friend.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you for listening.
John, thank you.
What up, what up? Have a good night.
And Sammy, thank you, my friend.
Thank you, and thank you all for listening.
And I'm Rosa Panta. This is The Clinic, all NBA podcasts. Come find us wherever you get your podcasts.